Before I start, I have a question for you all. Just imagine this. You're alone in an elevator, and in front of you is a dead body on a stretcher. Suddenly, that body moves. It sits up, looks right at you, and starts to bite its own hand. How would you feel? Wouldn't your heart just about stop? Believe me, a terrifying night just like this really happened to my friend, Alex. And today, I'm going to tell you the horrifying story of how he survived being trapped in a locked elevator with a corpse possessed by an evil spirit. This happened a few years ago. My friend Alex worked as an orderly at a big, well-known hospital in the city. The hospital was huge, about 17 stories tall. While there were 2 elevators for the public at the front of the building, there was a separate one in the back for staff, and specifically for transporting the deceased. That service elevator was part of Alex's duties. The incident took place on the night of the 4th of July in 2023. As you might know, on major holidays, the hospital staff is cut by almost half. Alex hadn't taken the night off because he had planned to spend Thanksgiving with his family in his hometown. That night, his shift was from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. It was around 10 p.m. when a patient from a motorcycle accident was brought in. He was a boy of about 16 or 17 named Tyler. His arms, legs, and head were badly injured. It was Alex who brought him from the ambulance to the emergency room on a stretcher. After the doctors gave him immediate treatment, Alex was called to take the boy to a private room. As Alex was taking Tyler to room 713, he thought to himself, "Thank God the kid made it." By about 11 p.m., Alex had gone back to his other duties. But the story doesn't end there. The real terror began a little after midnight. Suddenly, Alex was called back to room 713. When he walked in, he saw Tyler's mother and uncle crying uncontrollably. The mother was in such a state that she kept fainting. The boy who was talking just half an hour ago was now dead. Alex's heart sank. The nurses explained that the patient had suddenly started vomiting and having seizures, and he passed away while they were treating him. Now, the body had to be taken downstairs. Alex saw that the grieving relatives were in a terrible state. To spare them any more pain, he decided he would take the body down himself using the rear staff elevator. He told the nurses to inform the family that the body was being sent downstairs. The body was lying on a stretcher, its face covered with a white sheet. Alex entered the elevator and pressed the button for the ground floor. For the first 5 floors, everything was normal. But the nightmare began after passing the 5th floor. There was no draft, and the elevator's fan wasn't even running, but suddenly the white sheet slipped off the corpse's face. Alex tried to stay calm, but what he saw next made the ground feel like it was falling from under his feet. The corpse's eyes were wide open, staring directly at him. Alex quickly composed himself, thinking maybe it was a post-mortem spasm from the accident. He used his hand to close the eyes and covered the face again. While doing this, Alex glanced at the elevator's display and saw that the elevator wasn't going down anymore. Instead, it was going up towards the 17th floor. A cold chill ran down his spine. His throat went dry with fear. He started frantically pressing the buttons to go down. Just then, there was a thud. The corpse sat up on the stretcher. As it sat up, the sheet fell from its face again. Its eyes seemed even bigger, fixed on Alex with an unblinking stare. Alex wanted to scream, but no sound came out of his throat. He repeatedly pressed the door button, but the door wouldn't open and the elevator didn't stop. And then, something happened that Alex could never have imagined, not even in his wildest dreams. The corpse put the 4 fingers of its right hand, all except the thumb, into its own mouth and began to chew on them ferociously. Terrified, Alex tried to say a prayer, but he couldn't remember a single word correctly. Suddenly, without taking his hand out of his mouth, the body fell back onto the stretcher with another thud. Then, Alex noticed that the elevator had stopped on the 17th floor, but the doors didn't open. Then, as if someone had pushed it, the body suddenly fell from the stretcher onto the elevator floor. As it fell, the mangled, chewed-up hand came out of its mouth, the fingers torn and bloody. Seeing this horrific sight, Alex huddled helplessly in a corner of the elevator. When Alex tried to press the down button again, he heard the sound of something heavy landing on the roof of the elevator. With that sound, the body on the floor started to try to sit up again. He could clearly see it trying to speak to him as blood gushed from its mouth. At that moment, he suddenly thought of his daughter. Alex's 2-year-old daughter couldn't fall asleep at night without listening to a recitation of the Quran. Because of this, he always kept a recording of it downloaded on his phone. As a last resort, thinking it was his only chance of survival, he pulled out his phone and played the recitation at full volume. And believe me, as soon as the Quran recitation began, the elevator miraculously started to descend at a normal speed. When the elevator doors opened, Alex saw the hospital staff and the boy's uncle, Ken, standing there. They all seemed perfectly normal. No one asked him why he was so late. Looking at the body on the floor, Ken simply asked, "Why is he on the floor?" Shaking, Alex replied, "The elevator was shaking a lot, so he fell." No one was surprised to see the bite marks on the hand or the blood on the face. Everyone assumed it was because of the accident. After that, the boy's relatives took him home. A short while later, Alex told a friend at the hospital everything that had happened. After finishing his shift that day, Alex went home and immediately felt sick. He showered, ate, and fell asleep. But when he woke up, his whole body was in pain and he couldn't move one of his arms or legs. Seeing a doctor didn't help. A few days later, the friend Alex had confided in brought a spiritual healer to see him. After the healer performed a cleansing prayer, Alex started to feel a little better. However, after that day, he never rode in an elevator alone again. The hospital authorities also moved him from his orderly position to a job in the cafeteria. 12 days after the incident, the deceased boy's uncle, Ken, came back to the hospital looking for Alex. He walked straight up to Alex and asked him, "What happened between you and the body in the elevator?" Then Alex told him the entire story. After listening to everything, Ken asked him, "Are you okay now?" Alex replied, "I had a fever, but how did you know something happened to me, and why did you come looking for me?" The answer the boy's uncle gave sent a cold shiver down Alex's spine. He said, "My nephew didn't die in an accident. He had tried to commit suicide by jumping from a roof. The head injury caused the seizures, and he later died in the hospital. 2 days after we buried him, I asked his mother why he would do such a thing. His mother told me that for a few days he had been locking himself in his room, keeping the doors and windows shut to make it dark. Sometimes it sounded like he was talking to someone. The most terrifying thing was that after meals, he would take fish bones or meat bones to his room or up to the roof. Raw fish and meat also started disappearing from the fridge. We went into my nephew's room and found a circle drawn on the floor with a star in the middle and a half-melted candle at each point of the star. We realized this was the work of devil worshippers. We immediately called an expert in these matters. After seeing everything, that expert told me that the boy had gone to a sorcerer to cast a spell on a girl he liked. The sorcerer taught him a method to summon a demon to do his bidding. But the demon the boy actually summoned was one that worshipped Satan. That demon had tricked the boy and was trying to sacrifice him to the devil. Then Ken said to Alex, "You have nothing to fear. The truth is, after my nephew's death, that demon possessed his body out of anger. Everything that happened inside that elevator was the demon's rampage." The next day, the expert came with 2 assistants. They cleansed the entire house, recited prayers, and sprinkled holy water before they left. After telling him all this, the boy's uncle Ken left, telling Alex to be careful. Alex was fine after that. Nothing else unusual happened to him. He is healthy now. But the fear of that night, the horror of being trapped in a locked elevator with a demon-possessed corpse, is something he has never been able to forget. And since that night, Alex has never, ever ridden in an elevator alone again. Did this story send a chill down your spine? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to hear more mysterious and terrifying stories like this one, please give this video a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell.
Tonight, I'm going to tell you a true ghost story that will send a chill down your spine. It's a terrifying tale of a malevolent spirit that demands the sacrifice of newborns. How did evil forces drag an innocent couple into unseen danger? And why did an entire hospital have to shut down because of its own dark history? To find the answers, you'll need to stay with me until the very end. So let's dive into the depths of this horrifying mystery. Years ago, in a remote, isolated town, a young couple named Adnan and Rina started their new life together. Their house was located at the very edge of town, and everything in their new environment was unfamiliar. They quickly formed a good relationship with their neighbor, an older man named Kareem. Adnan was a merchant whose work often took him out of town, and Rina was 9 months pregnant. One day, Adnan had to leave on a business trip. Before he left, he told Rina he might be back late and asked their neighbor, Kareem, if he could keep an eye on her that night. The moment Adnan mentioned this, a look of pure fear crossed the faces of both Kareem and his wife. Kareem told Adnan that no one from town ever ventured into that area after dark. A great danger lurked there. He refused to say anything more, but his warning left Adnan feeling uneasy, and he decided to finish his work as quickly as possible and hurry back home. Adnan returned very late that night. When he walked into the house, he found that Rina was gone. After searching frantically, he headed towards the outhouse behind their property. There, he found Rina lying unconscious with deep scratch marks all over her body. Terrified, Adnan carried her back inside and tried to wake her. A few moments later, Rina's eyes shot open and she screamed in a terrified voice, "No, you monster! You can't have my baby! Get away from me!" Adnan managed to calm her down and asked what had happened. She explained that earlier in the evening, as she was walking to the outhouse, a stranger called out to her from the shadows. The figure's face was covered by a hood. It demanded her unborn child, speaking of a newborn sacrifice. It was a new moon, the darkest night of the month. When the stranger finally lowered its hood, Rina saw a horrific face, burnt and scarred, with flesh hanging from the bone. The sight was so horrifying that she fainted. As she finished telling Adnan what happened, she passed out again, leaving him completely distraught. With the help of a passing taxi, Adnan rushed Rina to a hospital in the nearest city. The doctors admitted her immediately, explaining that she was very close to her delivery time and needed to be monitored for a few days. But Rina never regained consciousness. The next day, as Adnan sat by her bedside, he drifted off to sleep from exhaustion. Suddenly, Adnan jolted awake. He looked over and saw that Rina's bed was empty. She was gone. He searched the entire hospital, but she was nowhere to be found. He couldn't understand how an unconscious woman could simply vanish from her hospital room. Another night passed with no sign of her. The next day, after filing a report with the police, he returned home feeling utterly helpless. 4 more days went by. Realizing this was no ordinary situation, Adnan sought help from spiritual healers and psychics, but no one could help him. Then the next morning, the hospital authorities and the police showed up at his house. They had brought Rina's body with them. A doctor from the hospital explained that the previous night, after finishing his rounds in the morgue, he noticed a body on the floor covered with a white sheet. The sheet was stained with blood. When he pulled it back, he saw it was Rina. Her body was mutilated, covered in puncture wounds as if she had been stabbed with countless needles, and her stomach had been ripped open. Seeing Rina in that state, Adnan's world fell apart. Rina was buried in the local cemetery that same day. The townspeople told Adnan that the large ancient cottonwood tree in the woods behind his house had been associated with supernatural events for years. The elders claimed that a powerful and malevolent spirit lived in that tree, and anyone who had ever tried to drive it away had met an unnatural death. This story sent a new wave of fear through the entire community. Exactly 1 week later, horrifying events began to unfold at the hospital where Rina had been taken. Any pregnant woman who was admitted would mysteriously disappear from her room during the night. A few days later, her mutilated body would be found in the hospital morgue in the same condition as Rina's. Sometimes the half-eaten remains of a newborn would also be discovered. The incidents grew more frequent and more gruesome. The hospital administration brought in paranormal investigators and spiritual experts, but nothing worked. One expert claimed that a demonic entity and its followers had turned the hospital into a place for their dark rituals. They had already sacrificed many souls there, and to remain was to invite death. Faced with public terror and pressure, the hospital was forced to shut down for good. Many years passed. A few years after these events, a new couple expressed interest in buying the abandoned hospital property. The authorities mentioned there had been some issues, but didn't tell them the full horrifying story. The couple happily bought the property, tore down the old building, and built a new house where they started their life. They had 3 daughters and 1 son. The father was an alcoholic, and the mother was known for her short temper and erratic behavior. They kept to themselves and had almost no contact with their neighbors. Soon after moving in, they noticed their eldest daughter began to act strangely. She would pull out her own hair in clumps and sometimes speak in an unnatural voice, saying things like, "I want the baby in your belly. Will you give it to me? I want to eat it." One day, they found the door to her room locked from the inside. They couldn't get it open. With the help of a neighbor, they broke the door down and found their daughter's lifeless body on the floor. Her eyes were wide open, frozen in an expression of absolute terror, as if she had seen something unimaginable in her final moments. Everyone suspected her death was not natural, but the couple insisted it must have been a suicide. More time passed. Then one night, their middle daughter woke up screaming. She claimed that her older sister had come into her room to take her away. The alcoholic father dismissed it as a nightmare, and her mother assumed she was just grieving. A few days later, their middle daughter's door was also locked from the inside. They broke it down only to be met with the exact same scene: her lifeless body on the floor, her face twisted in the same silent scream as her sister's. A cold dread crept into the couple's hearts finally. They immediately called a medium, thinking something was wrong with the house itself. The medium, after making contact with the spirits in the house, confirmed their worst fears. She told them the property was a lair for a demonic entity and its followers, and warned them to leave immediately. Terrified for their 2 remaining children, the couple packed their things and fled the house. It's rumored that the couple tried to get their money back from the authorities, but got into a bitter dispute and were never heard from again. Today, the house stands empty and abandoned. Locals who dare to walk past it at night swear they can sometimes hear the faint sounds of a woman crying or a soft, chilling laugh drifting from the empty windows. These incidents have left a permanent scar of fear on the minds of everyone in that town and the surrounding areas. Friends, if you enjoyed this story, please give the video a like. Let me know what you thought in the comments. And if you want to hear more thrilling stories like this, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Your support will encourage me to bring new stories.